This is the story of a man who danced with death, not once, not twice, but over and over again. A man who outlived a Kremlin hit squad, stared down one of the world's most ruthless dictators, and came dangerously close to crippling an entire oppressive regime. This is the story of Alexei Navalny, the man who stood face to face with Vladimir Putin, turned the Russian president's corruption into punchlines, and survived the deadliest poison known to man. Navalny wasn't just an opposition leader, he was a force, a vision of what Russia could become, a future without Putin. And that vision was something the Kremlin could never allow to exist. He survived a nerve agent attack that should have killed him. He exposed palaces of corruption hidden behind Putin's iron rule. He rallied millions, shaking the foundations of Russia's dictatorship.
You see now, they were saying that this city belongs to Putin. Is this true? They were saying that this city belongs to Moscow Mayor Sobyanin. Is it true?
But in the end, even Alexei Navalny couldn't escape the shadow of Vladimir Putin.
Что касается господина Навального, да, он ушел из жизни. Это всегда печальное событие. Но у нас и были другие случаи, когда люди в местах лишения свободы уходили из жизни.
His story isn't just about politics, it's about power, fear, and the cost of speaking the truth in a country where truth is a death sentence. And now, as the world demands answers, one question remains. Did Navalny's fight die with him? Or is his death the spark that will ignite something even bigger? This is the shocking, tragic, and unfinished story of Russia's most fearless opposition leader, and the dictator who feared him the most. Before we talk about Navalny, his life, achievements, and ultimately death, we need to take a closer look at the Russia that Putin built. When the USSR collapsed, Russia promised freedom. Instead, it got chaos. Gangster capitalism turned public wealth into private yachts. By 2000, a former KGB agent named Vladimir Putin vowed to restore order. But his order was a silent coup. The oligarchs kept their loot as long as they kneeled. Putin's Russia became a mafia state. Loyalists got palaces, critics got poison. Elections? Theater. Media? A puppet show. And dissent? A death sentence. To understand Navalny, you must understand Putin's Russia. Censorship was everywhere. No one can talk freely about anything. Votes were rigged in constant fear. You speak, you vanish. In 2003, Putin jailed Mikhail Khodorkovsky, once Russia's richest man, for daring to fund opposition parties. The message? Challenge me, and even your billions won't save you. Putin's regime runs on two fuels, oil and lies. The Panama Papers exposed his inner circle's secret empires, Swiss chalets, Monaco condos, Dubai safes. But in Russia, teachers earn $300 a month, pensions are stolen, and hospitals lack aspirin. This hypocrisy wasn't a bug, it was the system. Putin's palace, his $700 million yacht, his cronies' bribes, all paid for by a nation of 140 million hostages. And when Russians dared complain, the Kremlin's answer was simple: break their bones, silence their voices. Alexei Navalny was born in 1976, not into politics, but into the fading Soviet dream. His parents, a factory manager and an economist, raised him in a small town outside Moscow. Like many Soviet kids, he joined the Young Pioneers, wore red scarves, and believed in the system. Until it collapsed. The USSR dissolved when Navalny was 15. Chaos, hyperinflation, and gangster capitalism followed. While oligarchs looted the country, Navalny studied law, dreaming of a fairer Russia. But soon he'd learn that justice wouldn't come from courtrooms alone. In the 2000s, Navalny worked as a lawyer for Russia's emerging middle class. But everywhere he saw corruption, rigged contracts, bribes, and state-owned companies bleeding public funds. In 2008, he began blogging, exposing scams by oil giants like Rosneft. His tone was sharp, witty, and it went viral. When Putin announced his return to the presidency in 2011, Navalny joined the Bolotnaya Square protest. "I'm not afraid," he told the crowd of 100,000. The Kremlin took note. Days later, he was arrested, the first of 15 jail stints. Navalny knew paperwork bored people, but YouTube didn't. In 2017, his team dropped a bombshell, Putin's Palace, a $1.5 billion Black Sea mansion funded by oligarchs. With drone footage and leaked documents, Navalny turned complex graft into a blockbuster. The video trended globally and made him public enemy number one. He mocked the regime's absurdity. When prosecutors called him a Western agent, he joked, "Where's my CIA paycheck?" But behind the humor was a lethal game. In 2020, he announced plans to run against Putin. Weeks later, he drank tea laced with Novichok. December 19th, 2013. Putin's annual press conference, a stage-managed spectacle where sycophants lob softballs. But this year, an uninvited guest stood in the crowd, Alexei Navalny, Russia's most wanted critic. For years, Putin had pretended he didn't exist. Now, Navalny seized the mic. "Mr. President, your friends are robbing Russia blind. When will you stop them? Or are you their leader, or their hostage?" To which Putin coldly replied, "You're no human rights activist. You're here for power, just like your Western masters." Instead of backing up, Navalny escalated when he said, "Power, I'm here for justice, something you've forgotten," right at the face of one of the crueler dictators. In that moment, Russia's future split in two. Navalny, the lawyer turned muckracker, weaponized truth. Putin, the ex-KGB spy, weaponizing fear. One question hung in the air. Could a man with a blog topple a dictator? Putin's response was swift. Navalny's protests were met with batons. His staff were jailed. His brother Oleg became a hostage, sentenced to prison as collateral. But Navalny kept laughing. He live-streamed FSB spies bugging his office, mocking them. "Guys, at least bring better equipment." Then came the kill shot. Putin's Palace, a $1.5 billion monument to greed. Overnight, 1 in 7 Russians watched it. The Kremlin panicked, and in August 2020, as Navalny probed corruption in Siberia, they made their move. The clash defined their duel. Navalny, the gadfly exposing rot. Putin, the Tsar denying reality. But in Russia, truth-tellers don't get happy endings. As Navalny's movement grew, the Kremlin's grip tightened. Poison, prison, and finally, silence. August 20th, 2020. Navalny sips tea at Tomsk airport, a ritual he's done 1,000 times. But this cup was laced with Novichok, a nerve agent so lethal even handling it requires a hazmat suit. Minutes into the flight, he screams, "My body is on fire!" He later recalled, the pilot makes an emergency landing. Paramedics inject him with atropine, a nerve agent antidote, but the Kremlin denies all wrongdoing. For 2 days, Russian officials refused to let Navalny leave. His wife Yulia storms the hospital, demanding his transfer. Finally, under global pressure, he's flown to Berlin, comatose, clinging to life. German scientists confirm Novichok, the same toxin used to target Putin, critics abroad. Navalny's team traces the poisoning to FSB agents who stalked him for years, but Putin shrugs. If we wanted him dead, he'd be dead. Miraculously, Navalny survives. For months, he relearns basic motor skills, but instead of hiding, he doubles down. In December 2020, he releases "I Know Who Tried to Kill Me," a phone call prank exposing his FSB assassin. The agent blurts out details of the plot, unaware he's talking to Navalny. The video is vintage Navalny, fearless, mocking, and surgically exposing the regime's lies. But behind the bravado, his team begs him not to return to Russia. His response? "I'm not afraid. This is my home." January 17th, 2020, Navalny boards a plane to Moscow, knowing what awaits. At the airport, riot police drag him away as supporters chant his name. His crime? Violating parole for recovering from an assassination attempt. At his sham trial, Navalny mocks Putin's insecurity. "A thief should sit in jail, not a comedian like me." The sentence? 2.5 years. But this was just the beginning. Later charges, extremism, fraud, stretch his term to 19 years. Nationwide protests erupt. Over 10,000 are arrested. Navalny's team releases Putin's Palace Part 2 from jail, but the Kremlin scrubs it from the Russian internet. The message is clear. Dissent will be erased. Navalny is sent to IK6, a freezing penal colony 260 kilometers from the Arctic Circle. His cell is a concrete box smaller than a parking spot. Guards wake him hourly, a tactic to break his mind. Meals? Rotten cabbage and maggot-infested porridge. Yet Navalny smuggles dark humor through letters. He jokes about prison yoga, calls Putin the old man in the bunker, and writes to his daughter, "Don't worry, I'm the inmate who argues about Tolstoy with the guards." In 2023, Navalny vanishes for weeks. His lawyers find him emaciated, surviving on IV drips. Suspicions grow. Is the Kremlin starving him to death? But Navalny fires back, "They want me to beg for mercy. I won't." Days before his death, Navalny appears via video link, gaunt but grinning. "I'll survive this sentence," he quips. "Putin's regime won't." But on February 16, 2024, prison officials claim he collapsed after a walk. No autopsy, no body, just silence. Yulia Navalnaya, now the face of his movement, vows to fight on. Leaked documents later reveal Navalny was minutes from a prisoner swap. Putin, it seems, chose revenge over diplomacy. February 16, 2024. The world wakes to a terse statement from Russia's Federal Penitentiary Service. Alexei Navalny felt unwell after a walk. Resuscitation failed. No details, no evidence, just 12 words to erase a man who terrified a dictator. Leaked security tapes show Navalny alive just hours earlier, healthy enough to joke with guards. Yet within days, his body vanishes. Authorities claim sudden death syndrome. His mother, Lyudmila, is told, "The corpse is ours now, sign here or we bury him in the Arctic." In Russia, grief became a crime. Over 400 memorials sprang up overnight, only to be raided by police in riot gear. Candles were confiscated as extremist symbols. Over 2,000 mourners were arrested for laying carnations. State TV aired a soap opera during Navalny's funeral. The message? Move on. But defiance flickered in the shadows. Students projected Navalny's face into skyscrapers. Hackers replaced Putin's speeches with Navalny's final message. Underground print shops flooded cities with "Navalny lives" stickers. The Kremlin scrubbed his name, but couldn't kill his face. The West erupted. Biden blamed Putin directly. "He's a thug. History will judge." Germany summoned Russia's ambassador. Poland named a square after Navalny. But beyond rhetoric, action stalled. Sanctions? Already maxed out. Diplomacy? Frozen. As one EU official admitted, Putin's untouchable. Yulia Navalnaya emerged as his heir. "I'll continue Alexei's fight," she vowed, rallying NATO to seize $300 billion in frozen Russian assets. "Turn Putin's blood money into Ukraine's rebuilding fund." But in Moscow, state media smeared her, a CIA widow chasing fame. Global protests swelled. In Argentina, activists projected Navalny onto the Obelisco. In New York, Russians in exile flooded Times Square with his portrait. Even China's censor struggled to erase #Navalny from Weibo. Weeks later, a whistleblower leaked prison logs to independent media. Navalny's final months, 27 stints in solitary confinement, guards withholding medicine, a mysterious injection days before his death. The source, codenamed Raven, risked everything to expose the truth. They want him to suffer, not just die. The Kremlin scrambled to bury evidence. Prison staff were forced to sign NDAs. Navalny's letters vanished. But one phrase leaked from his final note: "Don't let them pretend I was silent." Navalny's death didn't kill his movement, it supercharged it. Anonymous partisans leaked blueprints of Putin's doomsday bunkers. His anti-corruption foundation, now exiled in Lithuania, published a 10,000-word manifesto, a post-Putin Russia. Crowdfunded drones beamed protest videos into Moscow. A new generation, raised on VPNs and Navalny's YouTube channel, keeps his defiance alive. They're dubbed the Orphans of Hope, too young to protest openly, but old enough to resist. As one teen hacker told us, Putin can't jail 10 million of us. Today, Putin rules a nation where dissent is a whisper. But Navalny's truth echoes louder. His face haunts the regime. on subway ads hacked by anarchists, in graffiti on the Kremlin's walls, and in the courage of ordinary Russians who still whisper he was right. Navalny's death turned him into a paradox, a martyr banned in his homeland but immortalized worldwide. In Russia, his name is erased from textbooks, his videos blocked by firewalls. Yet in death, he became a mirror held up to Putin's regime, exposing its fear of truth, its cruelty, and its fragility. Days after his death, hackers hijacked state TV to broadcast Navalny's final message. In Warsaw, activists beamed his face onto the Russian embassy. Even in censorship, his ghost haunted the Kremlin. As one Moscow student whispered, they killed the man, not the idea. Putin's response? Crushed dissent harder. By March 2024, Russia's foreign agent law expanded to include anyone criticizing the Ukraine war. Teachers, nurses, even funeral directors face jail for calling Navalny a hero. Over 1,500 NGOs shut down. The message? There is no Russia outside Putin. New tactics emerged. Protesters' families lost jobs. Teens were forced to write apologies to Putin in school. A mother in Yekaterinburg was jailed for reposting Navalny's photo, a crime punishable by 7 years. As the UN warned, Russia is criminalizing thought. Yet the crackdown birthed ingenuity. Kids traded Navalny's speeches on USB sticks disguised as Pokemon cards. Grandparents streamed protests via Bluetooth to avoid surveillance. The harder the state squeezed, the more defiance bled through the crack. Navalny's Anti-Corruption Foundation, FBK, now wages war from exile. In Lithuania, a digital army of coders, lawyers, and meme makers expose Putin's secrets. Their 2024 Panama Papers 2.0 leak revealed offshore empires funding Russia's war machine and luxury escapes from Putin's cronies. FBK's Maria Pevchik, Navalny's protege, leads the charge. Alexei taught us to weaponize shame, she says. Their latest video, Putin's Secret Family, trended globally despite Kremlin bots flooding dislikes. The goal? Make corruption too costly for Putin's elite. Inside Russia, whistleblowers risk everything. An oil executive leaked pipeline blueprints. A soldier shared mass grave coordinates. Navalny's network, once centralized, is now a hydra, decentralized, encrypted, and relentless. The West faces a moral test. While the EU debates seizing $300 billion in frozen Russian funds, global South nations shrug. You ignored Navalny for years. Why care now? Even Ukraine's President Zelensky warns Putin won't stop with Navalny, he'll silence all of us. Yulia Navalnaya, now a global icon, pushes leaders further. Sanction Putin's chefs, tailors, yacht crews, make his world small. But with elections looming, democracies waver. France unblocks a Russian gas payment. Germany approves tank parts. As one activist fumes, business as usual is betrayal. From Tehran to Hong Kong, autocrats study Putin's playbook, but so do dissidents. Navalny's YouTube tutorials on safe protesting are now subtitled in Farsi, Arabic, and Mandarin. His death wasn't an endpoint, it's a blueprint. In Kazan, a new generation gathers in basements. They're too young to remember Navalny alive, but old enough to inherit his rage. Their tools? TikTok skits mocking state TV. Their weapon? A question. If Putin's so strong, why did he fear one man? Putin may rule for life, but Navalny's final letter, smuggled via lawyer, hinted at hope. They think they've won, but tyranny is a pyramid scheme. It collapses when people stop believing. Every morning, Moscow scrubs away tributes. Every night, new flowers bloom. Silent, persistent, unafraid. The lesson of Navalny isn't that autocrats win, it's that they never stop fearing the truth. Alexei Navalny didn't just oppose Putin, he rewrote the rules of dissent. Before him, Russian opposition was fractured, elite, and timid. Navalny turned anti-corruption into a viral movement. His investigations weren't just exposés, they were blueprints for a new Russia. He forced Europe to seize yachts and freeze accounts. He made Novichok a household word. And he proved that even in a digital dictatorship, truth can't be fully censored. But his greatest victory? Inspiring a generation to laugh at tyranny, to mock the absurdity of stolen elections, to call Putin the naked king, and to believe, even briefly, that change was possible. Navalny's fight wasn't just political, it was moral. He refused to let Russians accept graft as normal. His mantra, if you see theft, name the thief. He weaponized shame in a culture of impunity. He never carried a gun, but he armed millions with facts. He never won an election, but he forced the Kremlin to rig them. And when offered freedom in exile, he chose prison, because surrender would betray those who believed in him. His code was simple: never let autocrats dictate reality. Even in death, he forced Putin to deny, lie, and fear a corpse. Navalny's story isn't just Russian. From Myanmar to Belarus, his tactics, satire, YouTube exposés, mass mobilization, are now dissidents' handbooks. His death is a warning. When truth-tellers fall, darkness follows. But his life is a roadmap. He proved that courage is contagious, that dictators fear jokes more than bullets, and that in the 21st century, revolution doesn't start with a coup, it starts with a click. Alexei Navalny is dead, but autocrats like Putin don't kill dissidents to end movements. They kill them to terrify the rest of us into silence, to make us ask, if he couldn't win, what chance do I have? Yet Navalny's murder revealed Putin's weakness. Tyrants can ban protest, block websites, and jail millions, but they can't kill a question. Why are you so afraid of the truth? Navalny's grave is unmarked. His name is banned. But dictators forget, silence can scream louder than slogans. Every erased memorial, every deleted post, every jailed teen, they're proof that courage outlives fear. His story isn't about one man, it's about you. What you do when lies become law. Whether you look away or become the candle in the dark.